right, art music is a genre of music that maybe someone would say is not totally African, but we can be proven wrong because music is universal. So we'll get to understand from what perspective how much indigenous elements
are
exactly
in art music. Yes,
or maybe
indeed.
bringing art music into the African and all of that. Now, we have in the studio a composer of art music who is the author of Music and Social Dynamics in Nigeria, Professor Bode Omojola. Prof, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's nice to see you.
Good to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Right. We don't often hear art music every day on the streets. We hear more of rap, hip hop, Afro beats, you know, and all soul, R&B, and all of that. First of all, make us understand. Break it down. Is art music a genre of music by itself, or is just a fusion of something new?
Good morning.
Morning.
So we could approach that question in two ways.
Okay.
One, to extend the very notion of art in a much broader way, and then to say that if art refers to something that is of high quality, then we could say even in traditional African societies we do have art music. However, art music also refers to a specific genre of music, just as you said, and it's often associated with Western classical music. So the word art is another way of saying classical music. But as you know, Nigeria was colonized, we studied in Western schools, so ultimately many of us have imbibed the very notion of art music. You know, we were trained in Western universities and so on and so forth. So what has been happening is African composers have been telling themselves, instead of just performing Western classical music, how could I create, how do we create a new genre of modern African music that may borrow from Western classical music, but is also conceptually grounded in African aesthetics.
Okay. Let's hear some, you know, get a feel of what we're talking about.
Exactly.
Because when you talk about music, it's when you hear it that you can actually appreciate it. Right, that's
when you hear that, it brings to mind something British, something French.
Yeah, it reminds you of the Mozarts, the Handels, the Beethovens,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
Of this world. And just like Prof said, we have, of course, Professor Bode Omojola right here, who's been trying to make us understand exactly what art music is all about. So now, in trying to bring that African element into art music, which, like you have described, is, you know, basically classical, borrowing from the foreign, you know, what we've always known.
Yeah.
How challenging is it to bring this African element into art music?
Yeah. So, for example, the piece we just heard, that was a piece titled Prayer, which I wrote some 11 years ago. Sorry, even longer than that. And the point is, it's based on the concept of African pianism. That concept was evolved by Professor Akinyuba, foremost Nigerian composer who is based in the United States now, who felt that, look, the piano has a percussive character. There's a sense in which we could conceive of the piano as an ensemble of tuned idiophones. That is an ensemble of African instruments, basically.
Okay, it's going to get very, very technical, for people who don't understand music. But try to, simplify it for us. Yeah, I mean, ordinarily, when you look at the piano, you don't get a sense that there's anything African about the piano.
Okay, so we often talk about African music as being very rhythmic. There's percussion, there's drumming. So think of the piano as an instrument that you could get to and drumming on it. So if, for example, and then you go to the piano, papa, 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 papa. So you're using it to evoke the percussive character of African music. So that's the whole concept of African pianism.
Just the way you would do with the talking drum.
Exactly, with the drum, or even xylophones. These are African instruments. So that is a way of responding to your question. How do we do that? And one way is through this concept of African pianism, whereby you use the piano as a surrogate African traditional drum ensemble.
Interesting. But isn't there a danger of losing the African drum ensemble, borrowing your words, like the talking drum, for example? Won't they get lost in this newfound pianism?
Not exactly, because these are parallel developments. We're still using our traditional instruments in new ways, but we're also trying to every musical performance tradition is a product of history. Things are changing, things are developing. So there are parallel developments. While traditional drums and ensembles continue to feature prominently, there's no way that they're going to die. But you're also thinking of a different kind of audience, maybe intellectual audiences who might also like to see how we could use the piano to simulate African elements. It's already happening. Sunny Ade, for example, has been using the guitar as a kind of African ensemble, if you listen to different layers of the guitar. So these are all parallel developments which do not necessarily mitigate against one another.
When it comes to accepting, when it comes to consuming this kind of music, how much of that acceptance do we have now amongst African audience, or maybe even Nigerians?
It's relatively low, because I think most people don't want music to challenge them. They want music to just comfort them or support what they already have in terms of their aesthetic horizon. So that's why, for example, even jazz is not very popular in Nigeria, because it tends to challenge you. You have to listen in a contemplative way. You're following the music. You're following the processes that are taking place in the music. So that's why patronage is still relatively low. But that's what always happens with classical music. Even in Europe these days, younger people would rather play pop music, hip-hop, rather than listening to Beethoven or Mozart.
But in societies like ours, where there's hardly a place, I mean, if I wanted to go listen to this kind of music or performance, where would I go to? There aren't that many places where you can go and appreciate this kind of music.
Exactly. So the place that comes to mind readily in Lagos will be Muson.
Muson Center.
The concert that we heard yesterday in honor of Professor Akinyuba took place at Muson. But some classical music performances also do happen on university campuses. So for now, I agree with you that the places where you could enjoy the music are quite limited. We hope that things will continue to...
But are there efforts in deliberate moves to popularize the art music?
We have to strengthen such efforts.
And what dimensions would that
I think our schools will be key to that. What we teach at the secondary school level, at the tertiary school level should help us to train people, to teach people about the dynamics of classical music and how they could become part of our society.
Yeah, especially in this day and age where young people, you know, like you said, people don't want to be challenged by the music, to be, you know, contemplative, to listen to the message, you know. But most of this, you know, kind of music, art music, like what we're listening to now, they don't come with lyrics. So how do you know, come to a place of contemplation, you know, with this kind of music?
Yeah, I don't want to go into too much technical, as you had warned me earlier. But the music communicates in various ways through lyrics.
Definitely, yes.
You know, lyrics are referential. You know, I'm going to the market. We know what the market is.
Yeah.
Instrumental music communicates emotions. So there's a sense in which the music that we are listening to could actually keep you in some kind of mood.
Like right now, I feel so relaxed. It's unbelievable. I hope I don't, you know, forget that I'm on the show.
Don't worry, I'll knock you back on track.
So that's emotional communication in
there.
music. Yeah.
All right, it's really interesting to know that there are songs by Enya, you know, artists like Enya, where the play songs you don't get to listen to any lyrics, you don't hear any lyrics, but
or Yanni, for example.
Yanni, exactly. It just takes you, you know, to another realm altogether.
Exactly.
So we're looking forward to a time when, you know, we can mention Nigerian names.
We do have names.
And not necessarily, you know, the names we just mentioned.
Oh, yes, we do have names.
Okay.
We have Akinyuba.
Akinyuba, exactly.
We are celebrating. We have Samuel Aquabot. We have Ayo Bankole Senior and Junior too. So we do have names. TK E. Phillips, Fela Shawande. These are names that actually fairly globally known in modern African art music.
Awesome.
All right, we have to leave you here now. Professor Bode Omojola, thank you so much for coming and giving us enlightenment into what art music is and how there can be that infusion to bring the African perspective to understanding and enjoying this music. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Right.